Imagine being just 13 years old and faced with a choice that would shape the rest of your life: follow your unstable, addicted mother into chaos or stay behind, knowing she might never speak to you again. What would you do? This is my story, a roller coaster of heartbreak, betrayal, and survival. Growing up with my mom was like living in a whirlwind. She was a single mother, juggling boyfriends like a circus act and battling addictions that consumed everything in their path. By the time I was 13, I had learned to navigate her moods and her constant stream of promises, most of which were as fleeting as the men she brought into our lives. When my older sister, Sarah, turned 16, she found her escape. She moved in with friends, leaving me to face the storm alone. I didn't blame her. Sarah was like a shield, always trying to protect me from Mom's darker days. When she left, it felt like losing my last ally. Not long after Sarah's departure, Mom announced, "We're moving." No explanation, no discussion. Just a packed bag and a destination I didn't recognize. That was how we ended up in Mike's house, a dingy, isolated place surrounded by desert. Mike, a gruff man with hollow eyes and a cigarette perpetually glued to his fingers, barely acknowledged me when we arrived. The room we shared was small and suffocating, with a couch that sagged under my mom's weight and a single bed pushed against the wall. Most of our belongings were stuffed into storage, leaving me with just a few outfits and my sketch pad, a tiny slice of normalcy in a world that felt anything but. At first, I tried to adapt. I spent hours doodling in my sketch pad or wandering the barren landscape outside, searching for anything that felt like an escape. But Mom's downward spiral was hard to ignore. She spent most of her days on that sagging couch, either passed out or mumbling incoherently. Then, the breaking point came. One afternoon, I found her lying motionless, her breath shallow and her skin pale. Panic set in as I shook her, screaming her name. "Mom! Wake up!" Her eyelids fluttered, but she didn't respond. It wasn't the first time I'd seen her like this, but something about this moment felt different, worse. I knew I had to call for help. My heart pounded as I ran to the living room, where Mike sat on the phone, a cigarette dangling from his lips. "Please," I begged, my voice shaking. "I need to call an ambulance. My mom is sick." Mike barely glanced at me. "Wait your turn," he grumbled, turning his back to me. Desperation bubbled over. "She could die." I shouted, but he waved me off, muttering something about not wanting to get involved. With no other option, I grabbed my sneakers and bolted out the door. The desert heat pressed down on me as I ran, my feet pounding against the cracked pavement. Every step felt like a lifetime, but I didn't stop until I reached a grocery store with a payphone outside. Hands trembling, I dialed the only number I could remember, my mom's friend, Lisa. "Lisa," I gasped, tears streaming down my face. "It's Mom. She's not waking up. Please call an ambulance." Lisa's voice was calm but urgent. "Stay put. I'll call 911 and come get you." As I waited, panic gave way to exhaustion. My legs ached, and my head spun with questions. What if she didn't make it? What if I had to go back to Mike's house alone? By the time Lisa arrived, the ambulance had already come and gone. My mom was on her way to the hospital, and I was left standing in the parking lot, clutching my sketch pad like a lifeline. Lisa took me back to her small apartment, a cramped but warm space cluttered with mismatched furniture and the faint smell of lavender. She brewed me a cup of tea, her eyes filled with concern as she asked, "Do you know what happened to your mom?" I shook my head. She was just lying there. I couldn't wake her up. Lisa sighed, her worry deepening. "It could have been an overdose. Or maybe something else. You know how she is." The next few days were a blur. I waited anxiously for news, but none came. Then, on the third day, Lisa sat me down with a grim expression. "Your mom left the hospital," she said. "Against medical advice." My stomach dropped. "What? Where did she go?" Lisa hesitated. "She didn't tell anyone. She just left." It felt like a punch to the gut. My mother, who I had risked everything to save, had vanished without a word. Weeks passed, and the silence from my mom grew heavier. I clung to the hope that she'd come back for me, that she'd call or show up at Lisa's door. But as time went on, that hope started to wither. Lisa, though kind, couldn't keep me indefinitely. She had her own life, her own struggles. One evening, she sat me down again. "I'm so sorry, but you can't stay here much longer. Have you thought about where you'll go?" The weight of her words crushed me. I called my sister, Sarah, desperate for help. "Can I stay with you?" I asked, my voice shaking. Sarah's voice was tinged with regret. I tried asking, but my friend's mom said no. "There's just no room." My heart sank, but Sarah wasn't done. "Wait. I'll call Aunt Cheryl and Uncle Rick. Maybe they can take you in." The idea felt foreign. I hadn't seen or spoken to Aunt Cheryl and Uncle Rick in over a year. Mom had severed ties with most of our family, dragging me and Sarah along with her. But now, they were my only option. 2 days later, I was on their doorstep with nothing but a duffel bag of clothes and my sketchpad. Aunt Cheryl's arms wrapped around me in a warm, unfamiliar embrace, and Uncle Rick ruffled my hair, smiling gently. "You're safe here now," he said. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a flicker of hope. Moving in with Aunt Cheryl and Uncle Rick was like stepping into a different world. Their house was small but tidy, with neatly arranged furniture and walls lined with family photos. The quiet was unnerving at first. I was so used to the chaos of my mom's life that this calm felt almost alien. My cousins, Jenna and Tyler, were a few years older than me and kind in that awkward way teenagers are with a younger kid they barely know. Jenna gave me some of her clothes, things she didn't wear anymore but felt like treasures to me. Tyler let me use his old cassette player, and I'd spend hours listening to music, letting it drown out the nagging questions in my head. Aunt Cheryl was a force of nature, bustling around the house with an air of efficiency. She'd pack me a lunch for school, ask how my day was, and make sure I had everything I needed. Uncle Rick, quieter but no less kind, would sit with me in the evenings, teaching me how to play chess or helping with homework. For the first time, I experienced what a stable home could feel like. But even in this haven, I couldn't shake the guilt that clung to me like a shadow. Had I really abandoned my mom? Was she out there somewhere, struggling, because I hadn't been brave enough to stick by her? A month passed, and just as I began to settle into this new life, the storm returned. One evening, while I was in Jenna's room doodling in my sketchpad, I heard raised voices downstairs. At first, I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable: anger, frustration, pain. My stomach churned as I crept to the top of the stairs. "Where is she?" "She's my daughter." My mom's voice rang out, slurred and desperate. "You abandoned her." Uncle Rick's voice was firm but furious. "You have no right to just show up and demand her back." My heart raced as I pressed myself against the wall, straining to hear. "I didn't abandon her. I was sick." Mom's voice cracked, and I could hear the tears in it. "She's all I have, Rick. You don't understand what it's like. And you think she doesn't deserve better than this?" Aunt Cheryl shot back, her voice shaking with anger. I couldn't take it anymore. I darted back into Jenna's room, my mind racing. What was I supposed to do? Go with her and dive back into the chaos, or stay and risk never seeing her again? Moments later, the door burst open, and there she was. My mom stood in the doorway, her eyes red and puffy, her clothes wrinkled and smelling faintly of alcohol. "Pack your stuff," she said, her voice trembling. "We're leaving." I froze, my heart pounding. "I don't want to go," I said softly, my voice barely audible. Her expression shifted from desperation to disbelief. "What do you mean, you don't want to go? I'm your mother." Uncle Rick appeared behind her, his face etched with frustration. "She's staying here, Denise. Until you get your life together." Mom spun on him, her voice rising. "Don't you dare tell me how to raise my kid." The argument exploded, the two of them shouting over each other while Aunt Cheryl tried to intervene. It was too much. I bolted out the back door, tears streaming down my face. I ran to the edge of the yard, the cool night air stinging my cheeks. My chest heaved as I tried to catch my breath. A moment later, I heard footsteps behind me. It was my mom. She knelt down in front of me, her voice trembling. "Please, come with me. I know I've messed up, but I need you. I can't do this without you." Her words tore at me, but I forced myself to look her in the eyes. "I'll come with you when you have a job and a home. I need to know it'll be safe." Her face crumpled, and she began to sob. "You're abandoning me," she whispered. "You're just like everyone else." "No, Mom," I said, my voice cracking. "I'm not abandoning you. I'm giving you a chance to get better." She stared at me for a long moment, then stood up, her expression hardening. "Fine. If you stay here, don't expect to ever see me again." I watched as she turned and walked away, her silhouette disappearing into the darkness. After my mom left that night, the silence in the house was deafening. I sat on the back porch, staring at the stars and trying to make sense of what had just happened. My heart felt like it had been torn in two. Part of me wanted to run after her, to beg her to stay and promise I'd go with her. But the other part, the part that had grown up too fast, knew that staying was the right choice, no matter how much it hurt. Aunt Cheryl found me there a while later, her face soft with concern. She sat down next to me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "I know that wasn't easy," she said gently. "But I'm proud of you. You made a very mature decision tonight." Her words brought a lump to my throat, but I managed a small nod. "What if she never comes back?" I whispered. Cheryl sighed, her gaze distant. "That's a possibility," she admitted. "But you can't control what she does. All you can do is take care of yourself and make the best choices for your life." It wasn't the reassurance I wanted, but it was the truth. The days that followed were quiet but heavy. My mom didn't call, didn't write, didn't give any sign that she even existed. As much as I tried to focus on school and adjusting to life with my aunt and uncle, the absence of her presence was a constant ache. Then, about a month later, a letter arrived in the mail. It was from her. My hand shook as I opened the envelope, pulling out several pages covered in her familiar, messy handwriting. At first, I felt a surge of hope. Maybe this was her way of apologizing, of reaching out and trying to fix things. But as I read, that hope quickly dissolved. The letter wasn't an apology. It was a scathing diatribe, filled with accusations and guilt-tripping. She forgave me for abandoning her, she said, but it was clear she didn't truly mean it. The words dripped with bitterness, painting her as the victim and me as the ungrateful child who had betrayed her. I couldn't finish it. The pain was too raw. I tore the letter into pieces and threw it away. That act, small as it was, felt like a turning point. It was the first time I chose to protect myself from her toxicity rather than let it consume me. Years passed, and though the wounds she left behind never fully healed, they began to scar over. My aunt and uncle officially adopted me, giving me the stability and love I had craved for so long. Jenna and Tyler became like siblings to me, and their home became my home. But my mom was never far from my thoughts. Every birthday, every holiday, I wondered where she was, if she was okay, if she thought about me. Sometimes I'd pick up the phone, tempted to call her, but I never followed through. Then, when I was 18, I got another letter. This one was different. It was shorter, less accusatory. She wrote about her struggles, about trying to get clean and start over. She didn't ask for forgiveness, but there was a sense of regret in her words. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to reach out, to see if she had really changed. But the other part, the part that had learned to guard itself, was afraid of opening that door again. In the end, I wrote back. I told her about my life, about school and the friends I had made. I didn't blame her or confront her, I wasn't ready for that, but I let her know I was okay. We exchanged a few letters over the years, but our relationship never fully healed. She remained a distant figure, a reminder of the chaos I had left behind. Looking back now, I don't regret the choice I made at 13. It was the hardest decision of my life, but it was also the one that saved me. It taught me the importance of setting boundaries, of choosing stability over chaos, and of finding strength in the face of heartbreak. What would you have done in my shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss more stories filled with drama, twists, and heartfelt moments. See you in the next one.